Well, the so-called NAPLAN tests are assessments of literacy and numeracy that will be held in schools across Queensland next week. Critics have questioned the usefulness of these multiple choice tests and the way in which they're used to compare schools. One of the world's leading education experts has joined the critics, while Queensland's Education Minister Cameron Dick is warning against rushing to judgment. Nevertheless, the Queensland Minister has told 7:30 Queensland he does accept there's a risk NAPLAN testing could be used unfairly. Lucy Carter reports.
I would advise people not to follow the model that we've set and now are moving away from.
So our challenge is very different than it was 100 years ago.
The message from the woman described as one of the world's leading education advisors couldn't have been clearer.
Australia is poised to build on some great successes that have been part of your tradition over the last decades, or perhaps to take some turns that the United States has already trod and that we're trying to come back from.
Linda Darling-Hammond was in Australia this week to talk about education reform. But it was her message about what not to do, especially in relation to standardised testing, that Australian educators were most interested in.
I think the concern that is on the horizon in Australia is whether attaching all kinds of stakes to those tests, which are more like the tests we're moving away from in their design, the sort of the multiple choice approach, might cause the curriculum to be overly influenced in that direction.
Well, I think there are not a lot of similarities between the US system and the Australian system. NAPLAN testing is only a part of what we do when we're teaching kids in this country. The American system has been quite test-focused generally. Australia's is much more balanced.
Look, NAPLAN is an important tool to measure the basics.
Queensland's Education Minister Cameron Dick says parents shouldn't be alarmed about the national testing system. The minister's 8-year-old son will be sitting the NAPLAN tests next week. And as a parent, Cameron Dick says he's pleased schools are teaching and assessing basic maths and English skills.
It's a point-of-time measure to indicate where that child is in year 3, 5, 7 or 9, and then that provides a useful resource to teachers and to schools about what more could be done to help that individual child. But it's only one measure amongst many that we administer in Queensland schools.
Next week across Australia, primary and secondary school children will sit the NAPLAN literacy and numeracy tests. The results of the tests will form the basis of the information on the My School website, a site the federal government claims parents love, but one the education sector has always had grave concerns about.
It is one little snapshot in time and it doesn't give a complete picture about what a child's capable of. And when you use that to score a school and a school community, I think that you are overstepping the real reason that we had the test.
Look, I think there is a risk that NAPLAN tests could be used to unfairly compare schools. And so I've consistently said since I've become the Education Minister in Queensland that we need to apply caution in relation to NAPLAN. It's a useful tool, but only one tool.
With schools now being publicly judged on the My School website, teachers and principals are under pressure to keep their NAPLAN scores high. But at what cost?
Well, I think there's a concern that when students are spending all of their time focusing on multiple choice tests and bubbling in one answer out of 5, they're not learning to write effectively, they're not engaging in research and inquiry, they're not basically learning college and career-ready skills.
Lots of principals are saying they're very concerned about the impact of NAPLAN on teaching and on teaching time and on, more importantly, on curriculum, and that the curriculum's going to become narrowed down further and further as we become more dependent on resourcing as a result of the NAPLAN tests.
Education was on the agenda for the Prime Minister this week, with some pre-budget announcements, including extra support for disadvantaged students and another US-inspired reform, bonus payments for high-performing teachers.
We will design a system where teachers who are performing well can get additional pay and additional reward to recognise that great performance.
But like national testing, bonus payments have not worked in the US.
There have been 2 experiments that have been done on that recently. They've both found that that did not improve achievement, and in one case it actually reduced achievement for students.
The best teachers teach in teams. They collaborate together, they plan, they assess. To put them into a position where they are really pitting one teacher against another means that we're increasing competition. And who is going to want to be part of a collaborative team when ultimately it's about a competition and one person will get money and the others don't?
We will develop a best practice model, one that's a robust, one that identifies, for example, things like collaboration and cooperation.
How many lines does an angle form?
Linda Darling-Hammond says the US is now rethinking its approach to standardised testing and teacher bonuses, especially in light of its poor education results in comparison to other OECD nations. She has this message for Australia.
Then I would say, please be sure that your assessments are thoughtful, measure quality learning, and are used in the right ways to improve curriculum and improve teaching, rather than to rank and sort schools, students and teachers.
It's a relatively new testing process in Australian schools. We support it in Queensland, but I think we will look over time at how the test is administered, how it's, I suppose, developing as a diagnostic tool, and whether it should be improved or changed over time.
You may open the test to page 3. May begin the test now.
Lucy Carter with that report.